Welcome back to Indyfest 2021. I'm Jon Ralston here with Elizabeth Thompson. We're from the Nevada Independent. Elizabeth, what did you think of the Republicans, our final focus group of the day?
Well, they weren't shy, despite their feelings of being under pressure to defend themselves, they all seemed perfectly happy to defend themselves, so I thought that was interesting. I was listening in particular for the answer to what makes you a Republican, right? And 4 of the 7, even if they didn't initially say so right when Jon asked that question, within a few minutes or in answer to later questions, made it clear that their conservative values is what did it for them. And then they further clarified that what they meant by that was religiously driven conservative values. That wasn't everyone on the panel, but again, 4 of the 7 at one point or another indicated that that's what in their minds makes them a Republican over a Democrat. So I thought that was interesting. They all seem to agree that the Republicans get labeled in ways that they don't consider fair, and so they do spend some time defending themselves on that. I found it interesting that one of the Trump Republicans pointed out that she's Latina, and so she finds allegations of racism, I'm not sure what word she used, but silly, I think, was the gist of what she said. So those things kind of off the top are what stood out to me.
It's interesting, by the way, the Latina said her entire family loves Trump. It was interesting when I brought up Trump. I think they all indicated they had voted for Trump, which was not that surprising. But Trump is so misunderstood. The feeling that if only he had still been there, the fence would have been completed. Buying into kind of the fantasy world that he created for Republicans, that a bunch of them in that panel believed. On the other hand, a few others were clearly not, and might even have been open to voting for a Democrat at some point. None of them seemed too thrilled with Biden, which wasn't a surprise, but there were a few, what I described, and more so, by the way, than the Democrats, in some ways, open-minded and willing to consider the other side.
Yeah, a little bit less in lockstep, at least when it came to talking about presidencies. The gentleman on the far, it was right for me, even talked, which I thought was interesting, about how in his mind he really supported a lot of what Trump ended up doing, and just wanted him to basically keep his trap shut, right? Like, stop with the bullying, stop with the name calling, stop with the hyperbole all the time with how great you are, and just like stick to the facts, Jack. So that was kind of interesting to me, but still that didn't prevent him from being a Trump supporter. And what we hear from other voter groups is that bullying effect is much more important to them. And in their eyes, that renders Trump unfit for the presidency. So there was kind of a line there, I think, too, that's in play.
I thought just kind of to wrap up the discussion, not just of this focus group, but all 4 of these focus groups which, by the way, for me, were a lot of fun to do, in the sense that it was really a window into how people think, how much attention that they really pay to what's going on, whether they have time to pay attention. Certainly they don't, like you and I are, as I said, crazy people. We pay attention to this 24/7. But what they do pay attention to, there is still the validation culture going on, liberals watching MSNBC, the reverence for Fox News that you heard talked about there. But it's just fascinating to hear articulated by, real voters what's important to them. I found the whole experience actually kind of enlivening and illuminating.
Yeah, I loved the way these focus groups kind of opened up the discussion even more broadly than I suspected it would. So we couldn't have predicted that. This is the first time we've given it a try with live focus groups. But I just thought that every single conversation in all 4 groups was so interesting. I do want to point out that at the end, when we started talking about government spending and the role of government, that there was just so many just strong feelings about the word socialism kept getting dropped, and big spending, big government, mortgaging our future, and our children's future, which led into that question, John, that you asked about the role of government. I kind of wanted you to push them on that a little, because if you look at spending over the course of, let's say, the last 8 presidencies, really hasn't mattered who's been in the White House, actually, at least if you're tracking it based on the national debt and deficit. There's not that much of a difference between the two parties once they actually get into office, but you didn't hear a peep about that from these Republicans.
I want to wrap it up, but I assure you that if this was an episode of Ralston Live or Face to Face with Jon Ralston, I might have called them on that. But that wasn't the place for this. What I thought was more interesting about this than what you said is that both panels, Democrats and Republicans, the lack of trust for government, for politicians. You've always seen it. It's always been there, right? But it is so deeply seated now that I think a lot of them can't get past it. And it's not necessarily partisan, by the way, on the other side. And it was interesting because you see the results in polls. You hear maybe a man on the street interview or a woman on the street interview. You really saw it across the board here. So I thought the focus groups were great. We want to hear from you. If you liked them, let us know. We'll do them again. I think we'll probably do them again for Indyfest 2022.
Yes, please.
I think they were very, very illuminating and enlivening, as I said. So tomorrow, don't forget, we're going to be releasing full results of our Nevada independent poll. We'll let you know who's leading in the governor's race, primary and general, and who is leading in the U.S. Senate race between Adam Laxalt and Catherine Cortez Masto. But before we let you go today, thanks to everybody who has stuck around for our grand finale. Nate Silver will be here to sit down and chat with me about all manner of things. Maybe we'll even talk about that smashing Michigan win today. Stick around.